Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trendy Trading. Thank you so much. I'm finally back. This was a long vacation for me. I was gone for 4 days. I was in North Carolina for a wedding. I absolutely had a good time, but now I'm back and it feels good. I can tell you it's been several years since I have not been able to do an actual broad market analysis. So I felt like wow, this is different, right? I love to do these because these really put a pulse on the market for me. We're going to be reviewing the SPYs, the Qs, DIA, IWM. All of these are tradable charts. And then the gold TLT, also tradable. And then TNX, the dollar, which is DXY, the SKU, the P call, and then the VIX. Okay. Now, the last remainder that I just told you, I do not trade those. Those are just instruments that I use to help gauge the overall broad market analysis. Then finally, we are going to end with the ES futures, NASDAQ futures, oil futures, and Bitcoin futures. I do trade those. If you have any questions after this, please reach out to me on Twitter or here in the room. You can find me on Twitter at TrendyJohn, TR3NDYJON. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, what I've developed here is called a neutral strategy. Okay. It looks too simple. I think a lot of traders feel like, well, why does this work so well? Or, I don't feel comfortable just taking a line and so forth. Let me tell you something. This took me a long time to put together. This is supply and demand. This is Fibonacci. This is candle structure and support and resistance. And we put all that together to give you these levels that have high probabilities of working. The way that I trade this is quite simple. Okay, so if price pushes over this green line here, I'm looking to go long and I'm looking to trim in these targets to the upside. What's really important about the broad market analysis is taking into consideration these banners up here. Okay, so when I put all this together a long time ago, I was finding myself at a disadvantage because I was putting too much time and trying to figure out like what's the monthly trend, what's the yearly trend, right? What was last week's support and resistance? Where is supply and demand? So I came up with my own proprietary scripts that helped me find these without going back and looking at all the different time frames. So this really cuts down on things. So remember, for the SPY going into this week, these upper levels, we do not have any candle structure up and to the left. We have no supply. We have no resistance if we break out over these levels. So the levels that I'm giving you here are actual Fibonacci extensions. And I do teach this at Trendy Trading. Okay, it is very important that you know how and where to place your Fibonacci extensions to give yourself realistic targets that are going to work. And you guys can always go out there on my Twitter and see just how well my targets work. I teach everybody that here at Trendy Trading. So if I take the trade on SPY, I got to take into consideration its blue sky breakout. Okay, so each one of these levels, again, are Fibonacci extensions, and I would have several positions and looking at trimming. Now, there's a couple ways that I can approach this, and I just want to show you how I trade this. So if I take several trades or options or equity on the break of the green line, and as soon as I get up into T1 or close to T1, target one, I'm looking at trimming here. Okay, once I trim, I like to take my stop and move it up. Let's go ahead and pretend that this line right here is my stop. Once I hit this target and say that price actually breaks through T1, what I personally like to do is take this stop that's here and then I move it underneath that target one. What was resistance turns into support is the idea here. So if I'm stopped out, I'm only stopped out, in the money. I already have gained my profits and I'm just being cautious with my remaining position. All right, so for some reason, if we break down to the downside, if you've been following me for quite some time, then I hope this little nugget really helps you. The overall trend in the SPY is extremely bullish. So instead of me wanting to go short on the break of the red line, what I'm actually doing is looking for support. Okay, so I'm looking for support to come in right around this area here. So if support comes down into these lower areas, what I would like to do is take the trade lower on the curve. See, if we were to say this entire area here is a curve, then this right here is support. Okay, so 466.74 by 465.34. If we pull into there, then I would be looking to take along to the upside. Now the same would apply. Again, overall trend is very bullish, and because of that, I'm looking for support. But if I buy down here, then I'm trimming into every line that's on my chart. Okay, just like that. All right. So because the overall trend is extremely bullish, I'm looking for lower levels to be support for right now and these upper levels to be resistance, but I am biased to extremely bullish trend. Okay. Now, a couple things I do want to note here. The weekly is inside. Okay. It's inside, and then we pushed up. I call this an inside and up. Now, this really starts get going right over 469.75. Okay, so just keep that as a mental note. 469.75 could be that trigger that gets things really going to the upside before we hit that 471.17. Okay. All right, other things I want you to take into consideration is the 9 EMA. And you want to ask yourself, are we extended? Sure, you can use RSI, but I've always said anything that's free, there's a reason why it's free. Okay. So for me, it's more about just pattern recognition and understanding from the past, going back all the way to the inception of the market. You know, what is extended? And really, believe it or not, you can use your thumb and your finger and just measure here on the charts, if you like, to get an idea that every time price goes over the 9 EMA, what is it? You know, how far does it like to go over that EMA? And you'll see that in most cases, you know, it doesn't reach too far, okay, before it pulls back. You know, and sometimes it does. See, right here. So you can look at that and go, hey, it's about an inch, inch and a half. I know that sounds kind of funny, but you can use that tool. You can also, if you're using Thinkorswim or any other platform, you could come over here and draw yourself a line, you know, and you could say every time it moves from the 9 EMA to up, you know, it's about this length, okay? And then you could duplicate this length, length. Length, not link. Sorry, I use a lot of links. So there we go. And we could say, you know, okay, well, it's getting extended, right? Or this is a standard deviation, and see how it pulls back with that same length of this line. So when I look over here, you know, to me, this is getting a bit extended. Okay, so what I would say going forward in the SPY is that you use a little bit of caution here. Notice that my targets to the upside are a little bit closer, right? Once it breaks out over the green, it's a little bit closer. It's not always like that, folks. So if this were a neutral strategy way back here, my targets would actually be wider because we're expecting more of a move. This at this point is telling me just a little bit of caution. You know, make your targets a little bit tighter within that ATR, and that's why I've come up with the numbers I have. So once again, this is a neutral. I'm looking for support down in these levels, and these are the levels to the upside that I would like to trim at. Let's go ahead and move into the QQQs. All right, so this one right away, the first thing I see is a trendy buy signal. So we ended the week on a buy signal. This is an inside and up formation. These are absolutely beautiful. Looking at this, and don't leave me yet. So when we get to the NASDAQ futures, you're going to see how we predict and show where price is going way in advance by using all the methodology that I use here. So same thing really from here on out. The only thing you really need to listen to is the trend. Note the numbers here for my, you know, where I want to go long and where down here I'd be looking for support in this case because the overall trend is extremely bullish. The formation is inside and up, and my support levels are towards 400.29 by 395.49. Targets to the upside, we're looking at 408.88, 411.28. Now, 405 to 408 is, I mean, after last week's extension here, you could bring it in and make it a little bit tighter, okay? And one way to do this, we're just going to take some fibs. We're going to measure from that first target into my go or my trigger long, and we want to find the 38.2. So right here, let's go ahead and just mark this. All right, if you want to learn more about that, please come and visit us. But that number would be 406.86. Okay, and that again is the QQQ. Again, overall extremely bullish. Support levels down here towards the bottom. And then our extension Fibonacci's are going to be where I would be trimming and then bringing my stops up just to make sure that I cover myself and don't go red, right? DIA. So this one's a little bit different. You could see that these guys were lagging last week. It was an inside and down. Notice that we stopped the session right at the weekly 9 EMA. Okay, so why is that important? Well, you know, if you use 8 EMA or 10 EMA, it doesn't really matter. EMAs help us stay in a trend. For me, that trend is still intact, right? Not only is it holding the 9 EMA here, but it's also holding a very crucial part of a Fibonacci from this breakout. Okay, but I won't go into too much detail there. But so I would expect a little bit of support here. So if we reclaim, okay, tomorrow above these levels of 356.25, then I would be looking to go long into 358, 359.60, 362, okay? And if for some reason we break down because the weekly went extremely bearish, then you could see a move down towards 351 and possibly 348.47, okay? Now, again, this week, right, we do have holidays. So Thursday, we have no stock market, right? There's no stock market, no trading. And then on Friday, we actually close early at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. I wouldn't expect the volume to be there. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, so, you know, I've been trading for a long time. You know, it could be a very sideways type of week. It could be sideways until, you know, that Friday where we only have like a half a day session and all of a sudden the market rips or all of a sudden the market dips really hard. Here's my thing. I want to come in this week, just pay attention to a couple names, keep it really lighthearted, have a good time. Don't ruin my holiday. I want to be able to put a smile on my face and have a really good time with my friends and family and not be upset because I didn't take a trade right, right? All right. So again, Dow Jones a little bit different. It's looking like an inside and down. It did close at the 9 EMA, and we could see some support here on open tonight. If you're talking about, or if you want to watch the Dow Jones and you're curious, you can go to backslash YM, which is the Dow Jones futures. Okay. All right, so just take note of the numbers here and the green and the red line. Let's go ahead and move down into IWM. This also was an inside and down on the weekly. You can see that. Now, unlike the Dow, we're very close to finding that 9 EMA. To me, it would make sense to come in a little bit more tonight. So maybe a gap down in the RTY, which is the futures for IWM, and then find a bounce here. Okay. Regardless, we have a neutral strategy. Take notes of the numbers here. Same thing. Okay, overall trend here is bullish. Last week was not bullish. You know, again, maybe a flush into the 9 EMA, and then we start to see a bounce here and a little bit of sideways action. Okay, nothing wrong with creating a little bit of range in the market. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and move down to GLD. So gold. You know, gold futures, gold is an inside week. If we pull this back like this, you're going to see we just have a trend line here. There's a possibility that we pull back into this trend line around 170.73, and then we'd start to find bids or buyers to come in. I do, at this point, it looks like a pretty neutral week that we're coming into, so sideways action. If we start to break out or bids come in over 174.72, I'm looking for 175.61. 177, you could see the rest of the targets here. If for some reason we break down to the downside, notice that these banners up here are basically bullish to neutral. I would be looking for support between 169.56 and 168.27. Okay, and that is GLD. Let's go ahead and move down into TLT. All right, so TOT is looking like, you know, to me it looks kind of interesting from a structural candle right here, if we go inside and up, so basically over 149.26, we could see a quick breakout into 158.89, 151.82. The risk to reward there for me is kind of skewed. This is not something I want to trade. I just want to take note that bonds are basically sideways. They're making lower highs with higher lows, which is a sideways trend. Okay. All right, so down here on TNX, I watch TNX basically when it starts to fail and things start to come back, we start to see a move in big beta names and tech. And when things start to move up, we start to see a slowdown. So like your big names, right? Amazon, Google, big beta names. Just be cautious if we start to bid up on the TNX, okay? So the treasury. For right now, I have the neutral pretty wide in here. And as long as price stays in here, again, I'm neutral. All right. Now, because we're lower on the curve down here towards the bottom, we could see the treasury start to inch up a little bit. And because of that, I'm throwing a little bit of caution out there towards big beta names. Some of those names that have really been, smoking and doing their thing here lately. So just be careful. Again, with a little bit of sideways, and after a big run and into a holiday week, it's just something to take note of. Okay, so we are lower on the curve and we could see TNX start to inch up a little bit. All right. Let's go ahead and move into the dollar. So the dollar was extremely bullish. We talked about this for the last several sessions. I said that it looked like the dollar could be moving up, and surely it is. Okay, so neutral strategy here. Even though I don't trade this, it still gives me, something to look at. So I would tell you if it triggers over the 96.253, we could see the market pull in a little bit. One thing to note is that it came into one of my levels or one of my scripts. When we're underneath this script, we look for it to be resistance. So we closed into resistance on Friday. And if you note, some of those, like the DIA, came into support. So this is telling me that maybe we see a little bit of pullback in the dollar and we could see a little bit of a move up late in the session tonight and possibly into opening tomorrow. Okay, so again, here we are on the dollar. We start to bid over that 96.253 though. Just be cautious. Now I'm telling you, TLT starting to bid up a little bit. The TNX is coming into an area of support, and we got the dollar looking like it might want to break out. So all three of those things coupled or come together synergistically to tell me that we should be cautious. Okay. All right, coming down into the next thing that would tell me to be cautious is going to be the skew. Only pay attention to the left-hand side here. We're getting up into those areas where basically what the skew is saying is that your hedge funds are saying that, there are elements out there that are showing that we should be cautious and we could see a 2 standard deviation in the market. If you want to learn more about the skew, you can come here and check us out, or you can also just go on Google and see what it says there. But basically, we're getting into those levels where you want to take a little bit of caution. But what I will tell you is I'd like to look at the space. Right, the space between that high and where we are now, and it tells me that the market could still melt up some here, and the skew could see 160 before we start to see some sort of a pullback in the market. Okay. All right, so the P call, I'm not going to talk a lot about this. To me, it's been an absolute waste to even follow this year. It's not been that great. It's just telling me that the majority of traders right now are on the long side. Remember, fear and greed is saying that we're being greedy right now, guys. Matter of fact, fear and greed has us at a 69, and 69 means that you, me, and mostly everybody out there, we're being greedy. Okay, so keep that in mind. And that's what they're saying. Most participants here are buying calls. Okay, pretty straightforward. All right, so on the Vix Volatility Index, the way I use it is just like this, neutral strategy. I'm not concerned about the Vix until we start to break over the 20 level. All right, but it is starting to creep in. A little bit of volatility creeping in. The skew's high. The P call, everybody's on the long side. Everybody thinks that the market only goes up. The TNX is starting to come into an area of support. TLT is starting to bid up. The dollar's starting to bid up. We could see some sort of sideways to down. All of these things are pointing towards there, but this is 2021, right? Like nothing makes sense when you're looking at all of this stuff, because a lot of times the market's only dipping, you know, this much, and then the market's ripping. So we could definitely be in for some sort of trick, right? The market's been really tricky this year. This is why I love the neutral strategy. I don't have to put too much energy in worrying about things. I just pay attention to my levels. And if my levels work, which they do, then I just follow them. All right, pretty straightforward. So again, volatility index started to creep up a little bit. Just be cautious. All right. All right, ES futures. Oh, you've heard it, before. I'm going to tell you again. This is where I brag about, hey, I gave this blueprint to my members back in December of 2020. I projected where price would go, and here we are in November 21st, and we are in the red box. If you've been following me for over a year, then you know all of this has come true. I don't like hindsight traders. I'm not hindsight. I actually give levels, tell you where we're going before it happens, and then I tell you where price is going to bounce before it happens. So we look for price to come up into resistance, and then I give a little box down here and I say, hey, this is where we're looking to take the trade. When price is in the red box, we look to take a little bit of caution. And after everything I just told you, it makes sense, right? So just think about that. All right. So one thing though that I would like to show you in hindsight is that once it took out my levels, we coached this through and through. Notice how on the monthly 9 EMA, we just held that 9 EMA the whole time. There was no reason from a monthly perspective this year, guys, this entire year, to become a bear. Does that make sense? Like the price stayed above the 9 EMA this entire year. Never did we close underneath so far. Knock on some wood, right? All right, so here we are. We're almost to my projected target of 4,756. All right, so just know that for right now, I like to see us stay supported this month and into December above 4,600. And then if things break down to 44.66 or close to this 9 EMA, I would be a buyer again. All right. That's the ES futures. Over here on the weekly, I want you to note I name everything. And this one still says October. And the reason why is because there's no reason to change the blueprint. I just didn't see any reason to change the blueprint because we're just flagging off of that upper target that I had found everyone before. All right. So basically, if we could stay above 46.92, we could see 47.36 and then the upper numbers here. Okay, right now on the weekly, your support is down here at the 9 EMA, which is also confluent with the trendy edge, which is around 45.65. Let's go ahead and pull you into the NASDAQ. This one really makes me proud, guys, because here we are, just like I projected, into 16,508. We did this way before price got there. I coached all the way up. And matter of fact, since we had these candle formations and so forth, everything has worked out perfectly. And then on top of that, if you're not a long-term trader, I made it even shorter for the weekly. And check this out. I can't make this stuff up. This stuff was given to my members way before in advance. And you can see that price did push above the inside and up, and here we are at the red box. So on Friday on the weekly, the NASDAQ or the Qs, okay, these are in relationship to each other, about 42 points. So for every 42 points, you can find it moving about $1 in the QQQ. Now we push right into the red box on Friday. Understand that. What we like to see on the NASDAQ is 16,494 holds, okay, and then we break back above 16,000. 610.97 or 16,611. And if we get above there, we could see towards the end of the year towards 16,848 to 17,770. Wow. Just let that sink in for a bit. It's pretty awesome. All right, so over here on the oil futures, on the monthly, this one's pretty deep. This is an inside monthly so far. It's pulled back quite a bit, so can't really be mad at that. Oil was really on a tear. I am looking for 93 as a target. Timing is the variable. Over here on the weekly, we went inside and down. It could not get over the trendy edge. It broke down. It came down to the lower trendy edge. That means we came into support on last week's close. Okay, So what would I like to see here? Personally, I'd like to see a flush. Okay, a flush of the low or maybe even close to the low, and then a reclaim of the trendy edge. Okay, just support and resistance here. And if we can get back above 75.50 after we flush, then I'm interested in taking this trade to the upside back towards 77. Okay, that's what I'm looking at on oil futures. All right, so Bitcoin. Now, again, Bitcoin. This is a big one. We have a neutral strategy. Okay, and on the month we're inside. You can see that on the left hand side. On the weekly, we're at the 9 EMA cloud. We'd like to see that hold as far as trend goes. Okay, and so far, this is showing me that it came in to support on Friday. Again, these are the futures. We'll go over here to TradingView here in a second and take a look there. But overall, guys, top and wicks lets me know that the momentum is slowing down a little bit. But also the inside week is fine. That's what we need. We need an inside month. That's okay. We need an inside month. This was a really big rally here. All right. So nothing changes here as far as support and resistance goes. Bulls really need back above this trendy edge. So right in this area around 64,761. If we could start to bid above there, things start to look really good. That would be a big trigger long for me. If Bitcoin starts to pull back all the way down towards, for some reason, around 52,898, 53 in there, then I would be interested in trying along from there. But basically off a reclaim of my levels, and we won't go into too much of that. All right, so that's that. Let's go ahead and pull up this here, and we can take a look at Bitcoin and see what's going on right now. All right, and here we are, and you can see that it's just showing that we're down about 115 points or so. Looks pretty boring, if you ask me. So not much to talk about. So still, is the support going to hold or not? We'll see, if buyers show up. Once again, thank you so much. Please keep in mind that it's a short week. You should spend time with your family and friends. Don't try to immerse yourself too deep into the screens this week. I think it's more about balance and getting back in the chair after Black Friday and coming back after all of that. We could see some amazing numbers come out for like Amazon, retail shopping, Walmart, Target. So be looking for that type of move. If any of those names are coming into support, let's just say that we get some sort of pullback this week, be looking for them to come into support, and then perhaps you get a catalyst like news to come out and saying, hey, we had the best online, shopping at these stores. Just keep that in mind. Okay. Once again, give me a like, give me a retweet, give me, a follow. Come check out trendytrading.co. There's a lot for us to teach you. I really appreciate you, and thank you, and have the best next day or so before we get started here. We'll see you tonight in futures. Thank you so much.